Reverend, how are you?
Well, how are you?
Doing great, thanks. If you could, at the end of your good news, give like a minute and a half plug on the convention. Would you mind doing that?
Sure.
Okay, thanks so much.
Worldwide, CPT820.com. Your Chicago Progressive Talk.
Okay. Okay, how is he sounding, Coach May?
No, his audio levels are good.
Great. I'll be off the speaker in a hot second.
Okay. All right, sounds good.
Thank you.
All right, we have about 1 minute.
Okay.
WCPT, momentarily. 2009, General Motors is bankruptcy as a result of the Great Recession. Wanting to keep their jobs, unionized auto workers accepted concessions to allow GM to recover. GM received a bailout tax rate, while the employees' pay rate stayed the same. Several factories were being closed down, the raising price of healthcare premiums, very cheap workers being moved to commercial, all leading to 48,000 United Auto workers walking out in December 2019. Workers got together, protesting outside the party with signs.
30 seconds.
After 6 weeks of protests, General Motors losing $1 billion. They were willing to do it. The United Auto Workers received a 3% pay raise, factories staying open with more being built, a set process of temp workers to be the permanent workers, and their healthcare premium prices.
15 seconds.
That's been a WCPT moment in labor. We're working for you right now.
5.
Mm-hmm.
Those progressive.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show, coming to you from WCPT, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I'm Santita Jackson. It's a pleasure to be with you today. Hope you had a marvelous Mother's Day. I did, and I thank you for all of your well wishes. I hope that you know that my heart and love are and were with you yesterday and every day. Every day should be Mother's Day and Father's Day for that matter. I'm Santita Jackson. It's a joy to be with you today. We're going to be talking about a study that came out in ProPublica. This was a joint project with ProPublica and the Chicago Tribune. Black students in Illinois are far more likely to be ticketed by police for school behavior than white students. But actually, this is a story that has been ongoing. And we want to know what the policy is going to be. The head of the Illinois State education system has said there's something that needs to be done about this, but Black and brown children are especially vulnerable, and they're being charged fees that are hurting them, We've got to talk about that. But research has found that Black children are at least 3.5 times more likely to be suspended from school. And the numbers are actually higher, and it's a global issue. There's a study that came out of the UK that when you show Black children struggling in the same way in their system. So it's something that we need to talk about, not just in the United States, but globally. Coming up on some very interesting information about now, no American should die of COVID with all of the medicines available. Do you know that there are medicines available? No one's really talking about that. But COVID deaths now are no longer overwhelmingly among the unvaccinated. Let me talk with Dr. Shanita Knighton about that and what can we, and these articles, interestingly enough, are now talking about something that they have not really mentioned before, which has been infection prevention, which of course is her wheelhouse. So we're going to talk with her about that. What can we do to prevent infection? What can we do to lessen the severity of COVID if we get it? The things that we can do. We got to talk about that, everybody. But we're going to talk about what's happening with our children, because this is also happening to white children, but overwhelmingly to black children. They're being, we have the policing of schools, and when you have police, you have what? Arrests. You have fines. You have parents who can't pay these fines, and on and on and on. And we're going to have Jody Cohen talking about that from ProPublica. Can't wait to hear what she's got to say. So let's get to it. Let's get to some of these headlines, everybody. We got a lot to talk about today, a lot to talk about. And I think the spring just might be here, everybody. What do you think? In Chicago, we're going to have a high of 76 degrees, although it will be cloudy, but right now that is not the case. So just take in the sun, everybody. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 79 degrees and thunderstorms. But everybody, I will take it. In the NBA, the 76ers and the Heat are tied 2-2. And yesterday, the 76ers tied up the series 116-108, the Heat. And the Mavericks and the Suns, they're tied up in their series. Yesterday, the Mavericks won 111, Suns 101. And tonight, the Celtics will be playing the Bucks. Milwaukee leads that series 2-1. Major League Baseball, the White Sox 3, the Red Sox 2. They'll be playing the Guardians tonight. The Dodgers 7, the Cubs 1. The Cubs will be facing off against the Padres tonight, and the Twins will have tonight off. But yesterday they were triumphant over the A's, 4-3. In the NHL playoffs, the Kings and the Oilers faced off, and the Kings shut out the Oilers 4-0. The Lightning, well, they'll be playing the Maple Leafs tonight. But guess what? Minneapolis, well, I guess our Wild is struggling just a bit. The Blues 5, the Wild 2. Call me at 773-763-9278. 773-763-9278. I want to know what your thoughts are about the latest headlines. It seems that Mitch McConnell is going to he's floating the idea of a federal abortion ban if the right-wing Supreme Court overturns Roe. And indeed, stalwart progressive in the Senate, Elizabeth Warren said the filibuster should not stand in our way. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell has signaled that the GOP could pursue a federal ban on abortion if the Supreme Court prevails in the opinion that the leak says that they're going to overturn Roe v. Wade. What do you think about that, everybody? In a speech earlier today, Russian President Putin accused the West of leaving him no choice but to invade Ukraine. This comes as Russia is celebrating Victory Day, VE Day, victory over Europe. They lost at least 27 million Russians in the Second World War in what they proclaim as their victory over Nazism. Indeed, the numbers go as high as 55 million people that they lost in the Second World War. And of course, our First Lady made it to Ukraine this past weekend. God bless her, and thank heavens that she was safe. But she did have, she spent part of Mother's Day making an unannounced trip to Ukraine. God bless her. President Joe Biden will deliver remarks on inflation tomorrow as Americans continue to struggle with rising costs everywhere, from grocery stores to gas pumps. Indeed, his numbers are suffering because his poll numbers, because people are saying that he's not doing enough. What do you think, everybody? What do you think? Call me at 773-763-9278. 773-763-9278. Meet my morning stars on the Santita Jackson and Friends page. Santita Jackson and Friends. And of course, get on over to YouTube, everybody. That's what we were told to do. The Santita Jackson Show. Please get over there and like and subscribe. The Biden administration is issuing a new warning that the U.S. could see potentially 100 million COVID-19 infections this fall and winter. We're talking with Dr. Shanita Knighton to find out what we can do to prevent those infections. Everyone has been celebrating the triumph of Amazon as they are looking toward unionization. But Amazon has fired the managers at their recently unionized warehouse. More than half a dozen managers at Amazon's JFK 8 fulfillment center in Staten Island, New York, were abruptly fired on Thursday, a month after workers at the warehouse made history by overwhelmingly voting in favor of unionizing. You do recall we did have Chris Smalls on this show, brought to us by attorney C.K. Hoffler. Perhaps we should have him again to find out what is going on there. Everybody. What about Lula da Silva? Yeah, that's right. He is the most popular political figure in Brazil, imprisoned for political reasons to keep him from running against now President Bolsonaro. Well, he's going to throw his hat back into the ring to unseat the far right Brazilian president. Go, Lula, go. Years ago, when he first ran for president, in his first term, he had Reverend Jesse Jackson go down there as he was trying to galvanize the black vote. That was successful, and I hope that he will be successful again. 3.4 million warrantless searches of U.S. data under FISA last year, everybody. Did you know that? The government's annual transparency report disclosed that the warrantless data searches began in the aftermath of Ed Snowden's 2013 disclosures. Were you one of the persons who had your information mined? Pastor Todd Yeary, how are you today?
I don't know what data they may be mining. They can probably mine my data. I want to know what's in it too. But you never can tell what are you looking for? I mean, exactly. We're looking for diamonds, looking for gold. We can mine that, but how about mind your business? That's a whole different thing. We'll revisit that. Another time. Hope you had a good time celebrating with your mother on yesterday.
I did. She is doing great. She wanted to rest, and so I let her do it, but I had to bug her just a little bit.
Well, you must have done well. She got you up, you're wide awake and ready to go.
Well, let me say this. My mother marches to her own beat. What she does is she says, look, don't set aside a day for me. Mother's Day should be every day. Father's Day should be every day. So you're supposed to honor your father and your mother. That's what the Bible tells you. And then my mother lets that rest. How about that?
And she says, what do you mean a day for the mother? I'm a mother every day. Yeah,
How about that?
I can hear Mrs. J, the whole cadence and all of it. But happy Mother's Day, a day late to all of us. But let's get to the good news. Come on, here we go. Good morning, Chicago. Good morning, Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul. Let's get up. Let's get going. Let's get moving. Yep, it's Monday morning, but it's time to put your feet on the floor, feel the coolness. Yeah, it's getting a little warmer, but you can still feel the coolness on that tile. Feel it coming back through your feet. Take a deep breath. Fill your lungs with, here it is, L-I-F-E, life. It's going, get started, and start that morning beverage. Get that morning beverage, that orange juice, that morning Joe. Don't forget that water. Got to stay hydrated so that you can remain healthy. It is time to get moving. Let's talk about the good news this morning. I know with the weather changing and we have these conversations about temperature swings, but it's still springtime. And springtime, when we think about it agriculturally, is the season for planting. The time when we lay in the ground the seed for the things that we want to harvest in the fall. I would suggest that we have kind of a similar cycle, a window of opportunity, a time that we should focus on investing. Yeah, that's the word. Investing in the fulfillment, the continuation, the expansion of our dreams, and actually the honoring of our purpose and our destiny. Springtime is an important time, but I don't want you to miss this window of opportunity. Now, I didn't grow up on a farm, but my parents did. Both of them did. And I would remember, you know how your parents always give you the stories of their childhood. You kind of roll your eyes and go, yeah. Well, they would tell me the story about how planting and harvesting actually work. And how often the most difficult job was actually at the beginning of the season, the beginning of the planting season. And how familiar does that sound? In life, we often face the greatest adversity at the beginning, at the initiation of investing in our dreams. And here's what I want to explain. As we make transitions in life, we often face the difficult task of trying to prepare for new opportunities, experience new blessings in the midst of what appears to be, at the beginning of the season, sometimes barren and unproductive soil. But when we struggle, face disappointment, been discouraged, or even reach the point that we don't think things will get any better, we're actually standing in the barrenness of a moment looking forward to a new season where there will be a harvest of fruitful experience and even some happiness. But in order to transform unproductive soil, you got to first break up hardened ground in order to plant the seeds for your next blessing. That's the challenge of life. And so in preparing for new blessings, break up the hard ground of past setbacks, past heartbreak, so that you can plant the seeds that you believe will lead to your new blessings. How do we break up the ground? That's a good question. If you're struggling with issues of guilt and shame for past failures, break up the ground by honoring and receiving forgiveness from God and forgiving yourself for whatever it is that you may have experienced. If you're struggling with past failures, break up the ground with a new commitment to doing things better. If at first you don't succeed, try again. And if you've been hurt because of past abandonment issues, then break up the ground with the recognition that you're not alone. God is still with you. God forgives us, God prepares us, God walks with us, and God is always by our side. Now you can plant the seeds of future blessings even as you cry out through the difficulty of breaking up the hard ground. It's going to be tough work, but you can do it. And so I encourage you, I really encourage you, that if you are in this season and you're a little hesitant about planting seeds, this is your time. Don't worry about what's behind you. Look at what's in front of you. Let me tell you one thing that I learned. When you're planting seeds, you always plant seeds looking forward, not looking back. This is your opportunity. There are great things in store for you, and there are big things on the horizon. I believe it. But don't miss today. Break up that ground, plant those seeds, and start doing the work for the next phase of the life, because God created you intentionally, without apology, on purpose, with purpose. You're a bad somebody. It's your season. Start planting. Can't wait to see what the season of harvest is going to bring forth in your life. That's the good news for the morning, Santita.
Amen. I love that. We need that in this moment as we are looking at new life, spring. That's what it brings forth for us. And so many of us get stuck looking backwards. But we've been told, we've been admonished in the Bible over and over again. Remove not the ancient landmarks, but don't look back. Look forward. You got to keep on going. Nobody runs a race looking backwards. You'll never win. You'll never finish the race. You'll trip and hurt yourself, everybody. Think about that. What a brilliant message today. You're coming into Chicago, June 18th through the 22nd for the Rainbow Push Convention. Morning Stars, I want to see you there. Max, maybe you can come in from DC, and you too, Mark Stevens. And what about you, Jewel, from New York? Come on in. Barbara Bacon coming from Oak Park. Dave Dowling, Canada. Yes, and Linear Bob can come from Silicon Valley. All of our people, and Paula, you can come in from the suburbs too, darling. That's right, everybody. Come on, let's get to the conference. We're going to be talking about a lot of things that really, really matter. Talk to us.
Well, Santita, June 18th through the 22nd, we're going to be at the South Shore Cultural Center right there on the south side of Chicago. And in this moment, while we're talking about breaking up fallow, hardened ground and planting new seeds, that's really why we're coming together. We're talking about expanding new markets, creating new avenues of opportunity across the spectrum, whether you have a business that you're starting or expanding, if you are already in your career field and you're looking for the next opportunity to grow in that, when we're looking at changing the dynamics in corporate boardrooms and executive leadership positions, when we look at supplier diversity, but even the issues that are still lingering on the agenda, voting rights, human rights, all of those things, economic rights, how do we make sure that we continue to expand opportunity and not use the current difficulties as an excuse? Reverend Jackson is calling us together for this moment to make sure that we convene and not back down from from our dreams and our highest aspirations as a people and expand new markets. And here's what you can do to be a part of it. One, plan to be in Chicago June 18th through the 22nd. Yep, write that date down, because we're going to have an important time of conversation and gathering. But you can also register and keep track of how we're planning the convention. All you got to do is go to rainbowpush.org. That's it. That's all. And you'll be able to see all of the work that Reverend Jackson and the team are putting into this year's convention. Can't wait to see you then. Go ahead and sign up, and let's keep doing the work to expand new markets, because we've got to sow seed in this season.
Amen. Vice President of Push, pastor of the Douglas Memorial Community Church, the iconic historic church in Baltimore, Maryland. As we bring on Dr. Shanita Knighton, let me ask you this. Are you all working virtually, in person, both? How are you doing that, Pastor?
We are actually in transition. One of the things we haven't talked about is when you've had buildings for a couple of years that are not fully utilized, when you get ready to kind of what I call turn the building back on, you have to do a lot of inspection and evaluation. So I've actually had teams looking at everything from the physical structure to what's going on with the plumbing, looking at air quality. So we're not quite back in person, because I've got a lot of folks going through meticulously to make sure we have the healthiest possible environment for folks to be able to safely gather. It's going to be soon, but not just yet. We're still completely virtual, which has really helped us to be responsible in how we attend to the care concerns of our congregation.
Everybody, please, let's, as we go back into where we have been, as we go back into buildings, into work, into church, we've got to do this safely. Pastor Todd Geary, it's always a joy to hear your voice. Thank you for lifting us up so high. We've got Dr. Shanita Knighton with us. I was so excited when I started. I'm always doing a lot of reading, and I was reading a lot of different stories this weekend that gave us certainly they gave me hope. They gave me a chance to really start thinking about where we are. COVID deaths are now no longer overwhelmingly among the unvaccinated. Did you know that, everybody? Call me at 773-763-9278. 773-763-9278. Unvaccinated people, according to this Washington Post report, accounted for the overwhelming majority of deaths in the U.S. throughout much of the pandemic. But that has changed in recent months, according to a Washington Post analysis of this data. I want to know what is going on. We need to talk about this on the Santita Jackson Show. And no American should die of COVID-19 with treatments. Paula, you bring up the point that a lot of Americans are not offered treatments. You're diagnosed with COVID, and then they just send you home. They're even doing that now. So we're going to walk this back, because in a lot of these articles, and the few that I read in the Washington Post, in which they talked about the unvaccinated, those who are vaccinated getting COVID and getting sick and dying. I wanted to ask Dr. Knighton about it, because at the end of the day, they started talking about infection prevention, Dr. Knighton, which I sent you a text. I said, I can't believe it. They're finally talking about infection prevention. Whoa, that's a sea change. What is going on? I mean, why are we seeing these numbers shift in this way? We have about a minute before we go to break, but I certainly want to explore this with greater depth on the other side, Dr. Knighton. First of all, happy Mother's Day to you. Happy Mother's Day to you. I hope that you had a marvelous Mother's Day with your husband and your tribe. What did you do?
We really did. I was going to say, look, my bestie, they died long. We hung out. So it was a good time. But I don't know, Santita. I think this is interesting to me, but I'm not surprised. And I've always told you that I think messaging is everything.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that that message was that only the unvaccinated were dying, or only the unvaccinated were getting severely sick. Or without the acknowledgement that we're still using the same formula of a vaccine from March of 2020, and I call it using old tricks on a new dog, per se, as we're looking at these different variants.
Well, when we get back, I want you to explore that. When we get back, let's explore that, because a vaccine from March of 2020 and 2022, as we're going full throttle into 2023, doesn't make sense to me. And when we see this story, and now they're beginning to talk about infection prevention, I said, oh, okay. And then still, Paula acknowledges this too. Um, they're saying that no Americans should die of COVID with treatments available. But a lot of Americans are not being offered these treatments. This is Dr. Shira Doran, an infection disease physician and hospital epidemiologist at Tufts University. She said this in an ABC interview. But I'm like, okay, but it's been my experience that when people are diagnosed with COVID, you're just sent home. You're not offered anything. In many, if initially that's the way it worked. And it's still happening far too frequently. So we gotta talk about this. Messaging and managing. When you get COVID, what do you do? What do you do? And what about these numbers that show that vaccinated people are getting COVID, they're getting sick, they're dying. So please don't walk up to me and say I'm vaccinated and boosted. I've seen so much of that. So many people I know wearing masks this weekend, indoors. And I said, well, I'm vaccinated and boosted. I said, but you're not inoculated. So let's find out how we can protect ourselves. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show with our newly minted college graduate, Cosme Lozano. That's right, my engineer. I love it. He just graduated from the University of St. Francis. Everybody send Cosme Lozano some love. His family is so proud. What a Mother's Day gift he gave his mama. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes. Okay.
Thank you again for that. I appreciate it.
Oh, and you want to hear it again?
All right, sounds good.
I know he's like, oh my gosh, this woman. I just think it's a wonderful thing. I know your mother, and I know your whole family. I know they're so excited. God,
Yeah.
They are. And so they're just
Yeah, no, we'll play them this episode or something. I'll put it up the SoundCloud.
Oh yes, well, absolutely. Well, pull it for them, and I'm very excited for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And that's why I had to say it. So I always like to
It means a lot.
celebrate people. Oh, you're very welcome, honey. I like to celebrate people. It's important. But everybody give Cosme, Cosme, some love, everybody. His family have got to be so excited. I'm sure in the same way that your family were excited. Dr. Knighton. Dr. Knighton is the first person in her family to graduate high school, let alone a PhD. Oh my gosh. I'm so proud of this girl. I tell that story all the time. I don't know if she gets tired of me saying it, but I can't help it. I can't. But you know what? You have to understand. I can't. I know sometimes I treat her like she's my child. And I know she's like, but I'm not your child. But my grandmother had such a thirst for knowledge. And she came from just unrelenting poverty. Okay. And my grandmother was also a migrant worker. So when my family and I had the opportunity to go to Cuba, of course, in a very different position in which she lived, she told us, she described the hotels that we went to. That's how much time she spent in Havana as a little girl and in her youth, because she would go there and chop sugarcane and cook beans. And after she got her children through college, she went back and got her GED. Then she went to community college. And then she went to Hampton University and got her degree at 61. So, when I hear stories like this, and particularly people, who've been struggling, I just believe in celebrating it. And I know you're inspiring somebody else. That's right. Thank you, everybody. Everybody's giving Postmate. If you would go on StreamYard, everybody's giving you some love. Postmate, they're excited for you. He appreciates you. No, you can say it to them right now. How about that? Go on and say it to them.
I appreciate all the morning stars. I appreciate all the kind words.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Thank you. All right, we have about 1 minute left until we're back up.
Okay, well, I'm going to come right back to you, Shanina, Dr. Knighton.
That's fine. So I wanted to tell you too, like, I know that you might be offended, but your mother looks like your sister.
I'm not offended.
Like, she looks good.
I'm
Okay?
not offended. That makes me go, wait a minute. When people tell me that I look good, oh my God, I can't believe you're your age. I'm like, honey, I got great genes. But you know what my mother also did? Say clean living, okay? And that's why I have to tell my little young ladies, you can't be out in these streets and look well. And that does not work. You can't just do anything you want to. But thank you for that. I'm going to tell her. She's going to be very excited.
15 seconds.
No, she's not. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We were having fun that day.
5 seconds.
Okay.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Hey, everybody. COVID deaths no longer overwhelmingly among the unvaccinated as toll on the elderly grow. But, we are still using a vaccine from March of 2020 in 2022. We're seeing waning efficacy in shorter periods of time. More and more people are not getting boosted. And you have a lot of asymptomatic carriers because they have been vaccinated. They don't manifest, hospitalizing symptoms, but they still have COVID. But now we're seeing that when people have COVID, they got COVID, and COVID can really make you sick, everybody. So, hey. And I've been very blessed because I had Dr. Knighton and, one or two other people, but Dr. Knighton, is really keen on boosting your immune system and, making sure, did you drink your ginger tea, your lemon ginger tea today? I'm not a doctor. I am not prescribing things to you, but Santita, these are some things that you need to be doing so that you can boost your immune system. Are you taking your vitamin C? And I've read to you in your post story from March of 2020, in which they started, as doctors were desperate to save the lives of their patients, they started treating patients with massive doses of vitamin C. Now, I'm not a doctor, but as you recall, if we just go back 2.5 years, almost 3 years ago, it was a very unsettling time. And we didn't know what COVID was, but we did know that people were being taken out or they were getting very, very sick. So it was left to you to try and figure some things out, even as we closed down and did something unprecedented really in the world and everybody had to stay home. So what is going on? COVID deaths no longer overwhelmingly among the unvaccinated, as you know, and so many of you have said it. Well, look, I'm vaccinated and boosted. But that is not going to keep you from getting sick, from getting hospitalized. There's something more. In these articles, they're beginning to talk about infection prevention, which, of course, is the wheelhouse of Dr. Shanina Knighton. She's also a registered nurse. She is also a professor at Case Western Reserve University. She's a research clinical scholar. So I'm going to ask her, what does this mean as we see a growing percentage of Americans dying from COVID-19 who are vaccinated? And then I'm going to ask you about the protocols that we need to observe when we are diagnosed, because Americans are not getting the medicines that they need. But let's start talking about the vaccines and how we should be handling ourselves even as we've been vaccinated, we can see still there's some other things that we need to be doing, Dr. Knighton.
Yes. So I think the one thing that we all have to take a step back and really think about, I would say, let's temper our expectations, okay? Meaning that when we look at medications, when we look at drugs, when we look at vaccines, when we look at a lot of measures that we take, they are all risk-lowering measures. Meaning when you take a blood pressure medicine, yes, it does have side effects, but the goal of the medicine is to make sure that your blood pressure stays manageable, but it has to be within, of course, like certain parameters, right? So meaning like you have to temper your expectations to understand that, yes, you can do a blood pressure medicine, but if you're still eating, let's say, a crazy diet, if you're still not exercising, if you're not doing other things to go along with taking that medication, then it really cancels out the effect of the medication. It's the same thing with the vaccinations and with any treatment. We need to shift our focus of stop thinking that our medicines, our vaccines, our shots, whatever it is that we're taking is a cure. It is not a cure. It is a treatment. It is meant to help you lower the risk of whatever condition that you have. So my concern was the wording that was put out by non-scientists when it came to the vaccines, and I hate to say it, there were some scientists too that I do believe misspoke in saying, oh, if people are vaccinated, this thing will be over. However, the one thing that they didn't pay attention to, and this is what I know as an infection preventionist, is you can get a shot in your arm, and that's going to work on your system. It does not work on your hands, which can still be a transmitter of germs. It still doesn't stop people from coughing. It still doesn't stop people from sneezing. It still doesn't stop people from coming in contact with environmental germs or the germs directly from others. And so my concern is okay, well, we're setting ourselves up because it's, as soon as you get vaccinated, you can be without a mask. We're going to drop all of the environmental cleaning protocols, doing all of these things as if human behavior was still not going to be a thing, as if we knew for sure 100% that these vaccines would eradicate COVID. Then what happened? People got vaccinated. Then it was, what are these things? We're having these breakthrough infections. And it's like, okay, is everything breaking through because we did not do vaccinations along with preventative measures, such as being able to clean your hands, such as even thinking about your immune system, meaning that even too, if you were still eating an unhealthy diet and you were lowering your immune system by eating a lot of sugar and different things, even if the vaccine did help to fight off the worst side of COVID, it still wouldn't stop you from being asymptomatic because you would have all of these other things going on just as a result of not putting your body in the best shape possible. And so when I look at this situation and I see, it's no longer, the unvaccinated that are dying, it is unfortunately a problem that we still, even prior to COVID, amongst different communities, such as the African American community that have disparities when it comes to diabetes, when it comes to high blood pressure, when it comes to heart issues, when it comes to obesity. And we know that people that die from COVID early on and even up through now, the CDC said that these individuals had an average. So 95% of the people that died from COVID had on average 4 or more other conditions. That means that these are individuals that might have had flu, high blood pressure, maybe potentially overweight, and diabetes. And then they had COVID on top of that. So their immune systems in their body was already compromised. And so even now when I hear the term of immunocompromised, if your body is not functioning the way that it should and you are still managing it with medications or managing it through some sort of, naturopathic healing, which is fine, you still have to recognize that there was still a deficit or an issue with your body. And so we all could be deemed as what's called immunocompromised. Stress puts you at an immunocompromised state at times, depending on your levels. And so I just really want people to understand that yes, we are embarking upon spring and summer months. This time looks great right now, meaning that, yes, we're starting to see in some areas where the numbers are dropping. People are not even testing anymore like they should. So in their minds, like COVID has just gone away. But the most important time for me, or indicator, is going to be back when we're in the fall. It's back when people are back indoors. And it's then to say, are we looking at another variant? Because we're seeing other variants right now in other countries, like we really are. And we are seeing an upswing in numbers in other countries. But for whatever reason, we think that we won't be touched. And the problem is when we don't stay ready, it's taking us a lot more time to get ready, because we still have a division in regards to what the best practices are, and we still have a division in regards to what we should be doing as a people. And I'm saying that from the standpoint that there hasn't been universal messaging that does bring together what I call team science, and which is the actual thing, where not only are you taking the perspective of the infection preventionist, but you're also taking into account the epidemiologist, the infectious disease specialist. You're taking into account nurses. You're taking into account occupational therapy. You're taking into account our faith-based community, meaning, our pastors, meaning like every person that has a stake in everything, which is everyone. There should have been some sort of representation there, psychologists, to say, how can we best make it through this, and what are the preventative measures that we need to take to make sure we're addressing the good for the public by mind, body, and spirit. And I am still of the strong opinion that we did not give the public the proper tools to make sure that they are preventing infections. And even now, when you're still embarking upon places such as fast food restaurants, and they're still using the same gloves, and they're handling cards, and they're handling food, it shows me that we still have such a long, long way to go, even when we're talking about the health department and what should be deemed sanitary in regards to people handling food.
Well, now you had something on your social media of everybody at Hey Dr. Nina, at HEY Dr. Nina. It makes it very, very easy. You cited an example, because now we're back out here. We're working. We are back out here. I mean, America and the world has opened back up. Increasingly with, you might have to go to some events where they want you to be vaccinated. But now what's interesting is that they're like, oh yeah, we have a vaccination requirement, but you must take the antigen test within 24 hours of attending this event. I said, I've always said that. I've always said, wait a minute. The vaccine doesn't stop spread. It doesn't do that. It stops you from getting really sick, which is what you really need, but you also need to not spread it. That having been said, we are looking at, you had a young man who had gone to get some fast food, and he was driving his car, and you said, wow, this is this is a big miss in terms of infection prevention. Can you explain that?
Yes. And so what I'm actually going to add to the funniest thing is, Santita, that was my husband.
You are terrible.
It was. Oh, yeah. And look, and he actually, Coach, he put up under the picture, he said, so you just out here using me as an example.
Oh.
He said, I told him, I said, well, at least I didn't post a photo of the wife and how dirty it was. It was disgusting. So that's the thing. When I get in this car, I clean this car, okay? I clean stuff in there.
Oh.
I just do. So I sanitize everything. So I was like, at least I didn't show the results of what that wife looked like. And so then that kind of hushed him up a little bit. But yeah, no, I actually use him as an example, because I'm like, people should clean their steering wheels. We don't think about how many times we rush from coming out in the public setting and between the public setting and our home, and don't even think about the fact that our steering wheels can be the gateways of germs directly into our home. So, for example, I'm going to walk you through just going to a public space. I'm going to use the airport, okay? So, and I'm going to use coming home from the airport. So you going through the air? Actually, no. I can just use it every day. You going grocery shopping. You going grocery shopping. Yes, if they don't have automatic doors, you can touch the door. You done went in there, you done touched the food, you done touched all of the stuff that other people touch. The pen pad, we know, never gets clean. So you touch that after you entered your card. And then the funniest thing is, even though a lot of the machines still got the tap feature, you still have to sign, which is crazy to me because it eliminates the whole purpose of you just being able to tap. So you have that, and so now you touch all of these things. You now have your bag. You put your stuff in your car, and then the first thing you do, which should be, if you're putting it in the trunk of your car, that's not accessing the inside of your car. So I actually recommend to people to put their stuff in the trunk, so that way they don't have to touch the door and start touching stuff on the inside. But it's like, put the stuff in the trunk of the car and then clean your hands, and then get in the car. But a lot of people don't think about that. So it's like you put stuff in the car if you out shopping. Then the next thing you know, you're in your car, and let's say you want to go get some food. You might sanitize your hands before you start eating your food, but I guarantee you that you did not sanitize the steering wheel that you were touching. And so now, in between eating your food, you're constantly picking up germs because it's not like you can drive hands-free. So you're eating your food along with the germs that have accumulated on your steering wheel. Mm-hmm. And I almost describe it as your fourth hand if you drive. So your cell phone is your third hand, which we know is 10 times dirtier than the toilet seat. So imagine you managing the toilet seat in your hand and your fourth hand, meaning that you got your cell phone and the steering wheel and you're dealing with food. And imagine if you haven't cleaned any of those things and the many germs that those two items alone are going to come in contact with, including your head.
Oh. I'm speechless. I'm speechless because, while COVID, the numbers are rising again. I mean, now we see COVID deaths. This is a headline from the Washington Post. No longer overwhelmingly among the unvaccinated. Of course, they put in there as the total amount on the elderly grows, but these numbers are growing for everybody. For everybody. So what are you doing? And what are you being told? You're not being told enough. You're not being told enough about infection prevention, which is why we have Dr. Knighton here every day. So you can think about these things, so you can become more conscious, more conscientious about washing your hands. She's posted the video. I will repost it on how to wash your hands. I mean, girl, I was scrubbing my hands so in the airport the other week. The woman next to me asked me if I was a surgeon. just scrubbing. And I was holding my arms up, girl. I mean, I was just doing the best that I could and came back and, contracted COVID anyway. But actually, I fared better with COVID than many, if not most people do. I was tired, but that having been said, I got rest because I was tired going into it, which is something you got to watch. And you and Dr. Deb have been warning me about my schedule for quite some time. You're leaving yourself vulnerable to infection. You're doing all of these other things. What you're missing. Be quiet. I get up at 2 every day. So you can just leave me alone. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, are we about to drop? What happened to Dr. Knighton? Is she gone, Coach May? Ooh. Yeah, I was up at 3 this morning. I sure was. And I was sending you stuff. Well, that having been said, but I'd gotten a nap earlier yesterday. I sure did. And I work on Sundays. I work throughout the week. I don't have a day off. And I'm really working to change that around. Let me switch topics just real quick. I was reading this article from ABC News. It reads as follows: as mask mandates are lifted and mitigation measures are increasingly dropped across the nation, a stark reality continues to hinder the nation's return to a pre-pandemic sense of normality. Hundreds of Americans are still losing their lives to COVID every day. See, they don't have that running on the news, everybody, when they were letting you know how many people were dying, how many people were getting sick. However, with the growing availability of coronavirus vaccines and antiviral treatments, many health experts assert that given the United States' tremendous medical advancements in the fight against the virus at this point in time, few Americans should still be dying of COVID-19. But the thing is, when you're diagnosed, Dr. Knighton, that is not the first. I mean, you're just diagnosed and you're sent home. No one writes a prescription for you to go get an antiviral? I mean, that's not the normal course of treatment as I have seen it. Everybody I know who's been diagnosed with COVID was diagnosed with COVID, and that was it. Help me with that.
So I'm gonna tell you this, and because I'll be honest, like I promise you, I really think that me and my daughter might have like had it like late 2019, and this is the truth. And my primary, let's just say, like she's lover, Indian doctor. She actually did prescribe me an antiviral. I'm being honest, like she did, and that was not something that was like shared early on. Even still, we never heard that message like even throughout, right? And even too, when you think about an antiviral and you think about the antiviral meds that are out there, you really do ask yourself, with some of the treatments that were being questioned at that time that were existing, you know, for example, like the malaria drugs, like different things that existed already that had been used since the 50s and 60s, which the CDC had deemed safe for mommies and babies, and, you know, people and kids. You ask yourself, okay, well, if they don't do harm, then what was the harm in these people getting these meds? But it wasn't something that was, you know, discussed or made available. It was honestly like where a lot of the science was so biased, things were just shut down. And so if you didn't go with the majority of the narrative, you know, you were honestly like treated as an outcast. And we saw that happen quite a bit when people started to speak out in regards to whatever treatment measures, you know, they had working for them. They said to themselves, you know, like, hey, this helped my patients, potentially it may help yours. And a lot of these individuals ended up being on the fence, you know, in regards to like their licenses being almost taken or revoked, lost their jobs. There was a lot of that was happening, opposed to like really listening to the people that were treating the patients to really understand, are there other possible treatments that are out there? And it is unfortunate, but even still to this very day, when we talk about COVID-19, we still don't have a universal treatment plan throughout the United States when it comes down to somebody being diagnosed and within certain time windows, like what is the protocol for treatment for these individuals. Now, understand that like no two people are going to be the same, but we don't even have like what I would say a cookbook to say this is the particular treatment or protocol that you will undergo. Meaning you see how we might have a stroke protocol. There's certain things that you do if you know someone has a stroke, and there's universal protocols of what should be followed. Same thing if somebody has blood clots, there's universal protocols that should be followed. If somebody has increased potassium and we need to decrease their potassium, it's this whole protocol that we have to do just to like get their potassium levels back down. So I'm just bringing up a few things that it is perplexing to me that even still now, you hear the, you know, cohesive effort in regards to, yes, be vaccinated, be vaccinated, be vaccinated. But when we talk about treatments of someone that actually does have COVID, especially now that we know that, yes, you can still get COVID even after being vaccinated, we're still not thinking about what can those treatment options be. And I don't think that I don't think every voice is fairly being heard and assessments are being made. Because even still, you know, the fact that some things were even blocked, even though they were already approved through the FDA, I thought was a little bit perplexing. But again, that's a whole nother topic just because it's like, you know, does some of this stuff does it come into politics? And those are, of course, questions that we don't answer, but I will say that for some people, even within the scientific community, some of the decisions just didn't make sense, given, like, we're supposed to use our history and use the things that we've learned in the past to be able to inform our practices.
Everybody. Well, let me just ask you this. When you are diagnosed, I've got about a minute, what should you do? What should you ask your doctor? What should you be asking for? Like you told us the other week, and we're going to bring a young lady on who is a stroke survivor. I want to bring her on this week with you. What should we, in 1 minute, what should we ask for?
So for one, getting diagnosed with COVID-19 and making sure, of course, like that it is an actual diagnosis, being aware of your conditions just in general, meaning that yes, we know that COVID-19 does trigger a different response in individuals that may have had already pre-existing conditions. And I also put people in this category that may have not, that don't go to the doctor and are not sure if they have any issues within themselves. The most important thing is to make sure that you are monitoring your symptoms and monitoring where you are at and proactively reaching out, whether that is to a COVID hotline, if you don't have a primary, reaching out to your primary and saying, I was just diagnosed X amount of days. I believe my exposure might have happened on this particular day, or I'm unaware. I am not having any symptoms right now, but these are my vital signs. And make sure you have on your refrigerator or accessible for others to see a list of who it is they should call as an emergency contact, a list of your primary, a list of where you want to be treated at, and even to maybe your insurance information. Just because it is important for you to have a proactive plan so that others can care for you if you ever get into a situation where you can't care for yourself. But the most important thing is to make sure you're keeping up with where you are every single day.
And you know what? And talk to people. I talk to Dr. Knighton all the time when I had COVID. My mother had me call her every 2 hours. She said, this thing can turn. I said, okay. And then my cousin Maria. I mean, I had, my college roommate, Lisa, calls me twice a day. And on and on and on. And then I had some other friends who called because they wanted to make sure I was all right. So everybody. Got a lot to talk about with my new college graduate, Cosme Rosano. Everybody, please, let's talk about this disturbing study that we saw in the Chicago Tribune and ProPublica. Black students in Illinois are far more likely to be ticketed by police for school behavior than white students. It's not a new issue. Maybe it's something, maybe now we're ready to do something about it. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Dr. Knighton. Dr. Knighton, I just love you. My Dr. Shanita. Girl, I can't believe, you said, oh, and that was my husband. I'm like, girl, oh my word. I said, wow, this girl is too crazy because you were like, oh man.
Oh, it was. You better believe it. You go up under the comments, he gonna say, why you use me as an example?
Well, you know what? That's like being a preacher's kid. Honey, you'll be sitting in the pew when your father gets up to preach, and you will be the sermon. You are like, oh, no. My mother would say, now why are you doing this? You better be careful because you're going to be your father's sermon on Sunday. Oh, my mother's a hoot. You better be careful. You're going to be the example. Isn't that right? And my father would just look there and just go, oh, Jackie, please. Because people don't know. My mother is a caution. She is a piece of work. She does not play. But he loves it, He loves the fact that she's very, very strong. She's very, 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 very strong. And she takes it to everybody, starting with him. But she said, that's my husband. That's what I'm supposed to do. Next. She said, he needs me. She said, he needs me to do that. If I don't keep him straight, she said, that's my job. I said, okay, Mom. She didn't have to explain it to me because I saw the effects. And my father says she is the smartest, best person I know. Okay. He said, oh, yeah. Yeah. But do you want to hear about this story about how they are fining these children? And it is really hurting their parents. Their parents are having to pay these fees. It's awful what they're doing. This has been happening all over the country. Oh, I mean, they are fining black students. They're suspending and expelling them at disproportionate rates, and they are having to pay monetary fines.
Why?
Oh, honey, this is the way the system is set up. This school to prison pipeline is a real thing.
No, and I know that to be true because even like now, like it's like I'm telling you, it's really even been aggravating. Like with my youngest daughter in school, you know, and I don't know. I think, and this could sound really crazy, but I just think that we as adults need to model the behaviors that we want out of our children.
Absolutely.
And the one thing that I had brought up was the fact that a kid, right? Like, and I don't know. So it's the whole thing that the notion is telling the teacher, right? Like if somebody hits you or do something to you that makes you unsafe. But I think it's unrealistic that we expect everybody to still have like that mechanism of not automatically wanting to react, like if someone harms them physically, right, or even emotionally. And so it's how finding. So to me, it's the kid that ends up, you know, I would say, retaliating, that ends up getting in the trouble, opposed to them really trying to underline or understand why is it that they were even harmed in the first place.
Oh, absolutely. Well, hold on. I need to say hello to my guests who are up. Jody Cohen, it's been a long time. Oh, no, stay right there. Stay there. Jody Cohen, how are you?
Good, how are you?
It's good hearing your voice. Thank you for being back. I'm glad I'm here so you can be back. How about that? Jennifer Smith Richards, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you this morning?
Thank you for your fine work. I'm talking to someone who might become a source for you all in a story. She's an infection preventionist. This is a discipline that I did not even know existed. She's a research clinical scholar at Case Western Reserve University, professor there, and she's a registered nurse, PhD, Dr. Knighton. She's someone, and their profession have not been involved in this COVID discussion, which is insane. You know, to teach us how to wash our hands and how help us to not get COVID and other communicable diseases and viruses. And so, Dr. Knighton, please meet Jody Cohen and Jennifer Smith Richards, brilliant investigative reporters. Jody is from ProPublica and Jennifer is from the Chicago Tribune. So glad that you all were able to make the time to be with us this morning, because I know that everybody wants you. I've heard you on other shows. So thank you, Alessandra. And thank you all for making the space. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Knighton, you still there?
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, okay.
I am, yes.
Okay, very good. Well, you ought to enjoy this, but you know, you were saying that practically speaking, this is something that you're.
1 minute.
Thank you so much, Cosme, that your daughter has to deal with. I mean, there's a study that came out of Denver that showed that many white teachers are afraid of black students. I mean, and on and on and on. This cultural and social disconnect is hurting everybody, quite frankly. So I can't wait to hear what Jody Cohen and Jennifer Smith Richards have to tell us. And shout out to Amy Schumer. I understand, thank you, Paula, that she's got COVID and that she apparently has been posting the state of her health, and she's, you know, really struggling with it. So certainly we're sending much love to her. Oh boy. Oh boy. Okay, thank you so much, Cosme. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's Monday, May 9th, 2022. Coming to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Sending much love to Chad Larson and to Mark Pinsky and Matt Cummings and all the people here in Chicago. Sending you all much love. And Joni Esposito, of course, she begins at 2 o'clock. Oh, you do not want to miss Vasquez, and you don't want to miss this magnificent lineup here on WCPT. Equally magnificent lineup on AM 950 radio. Everybody, meet my morning stars on the Santita, Jackson, and Friends page. The Santita, Jackson, and Friends page on Facebook. And the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Most of you are there today. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So many of you are there today. So great, great, great. Please, everybody, like and share the show. Stanley, you know you got a network. Like and share the show. Barbara, please like and share the show. Dave, Effie, like and share the show with at least one person. Jacob, like and share the show. Everybody, sending you much love today. What about Black students who are being fined? They're being ticketed by police in school, and their parents are having a heck of a time trying to pay these fines. What is going on? It happens. It's more likely to happen to Black children, to Black students, than it is to white students. What gives, everybody? 773-763-9278. 773-763-9278. We've got the two brilliant reporters who've been uncovering this information, which is very difficult to track, but I'm going to let them talk about that on the other side of these headlines, everybody. In Chicago, we're going to have a high of 76 degrees. It will be cloudy. St. Paul, Minneapolis, St. Paul, 79 degrees, thunderstorms. And we've got the NBA playoffs. Don't you love it? The NBA, the NHL fighting it out at this time of year. In the NBA, well, the 76ers and Heat are tied. Last night, the 76ers tied it up 116-108 over the Heat. The Mavericks and the Suns are tied in their series as well. Last night, the Mavericks were able to even it up 111-101 over the Suns. And tonight, the Milwaukee Bucks will be playing the Boston Celtics, everybody. They lead the series, the world champion Bucks lead the series 2-1. In Major League Baseball, Chicago White Sox over the Red Sox 3-2. They'll be playing the Guardians tonight. The Dodgers bested the Cubs 7-1, and the Cubs might come back tonight against the Padres. And the Twins, all right, 4-3 over the A's. In the NHL playoffs, the Kings shut out the Oilers 4-0. The Lightning will be playing the Maple Leafs tonight. And hey, Minnesota. Well, maybe next time. All right, the Blues 5 and the Wild 2, but all is not lost. That series is not over. Mitch McConnell is floating the idea of a federal abortion ban if the right-wing court overturns Roe. We'll see how that works out. In a speech earlier today, Russian President Vladimir Putin accused the West of leaving him no choice but to invade Ukraine. This comes as Russia is celebrating Victory Day, VE Day, victory over Europe. They lost about 27 million. Some of the estimates go as high as 55 million people in the Second World War. And of course, our First Lady, as part of her Mother's Day initiative, went to, unannounced, to Ukraine. Thank goodness she had a safe visit there. God bless her. President Joe Biden will deliver remarks on inflation tomorrow as Americans continue to struggle with rising cost of everything everywhere. Amazon has fired the managers at their recently unionized warehouse. More than half a dozen managers at the JFK fulfillment facility in Staten Island, New York, were abruptly fired on Thursday after they had this triumphant unionization of their workers. President Lula da Silva, probably the most popular elected official or unelected official, one of the most popular men in South America, certainly the most popular politician in Brazil, jailed for political reasons and had the conviction overturned. Well, guess what? He, on the cover of Time last week, is going to run against the right-wing Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro, of course, is known as the Trump of Brazil. We will see how this goes. But remember, he left office with an 83% approval rating. That's how popular Lula da Silva was. And he even had Reverend Jesse Jackson come and campaign for him as he was trying to arouse the black vote. That's something that he has been working on. Bet you didn't know 3.4 million warrantless searches of U.S. data occurred last year. What do you think about that? Call me at 773-763-9278. What about Black children in the school system. Many Black parents, this was a Washington Post article that was very interesting, said, I'm reluctant to send my child back to school because we're making a lot of headway, we're making a lot of progress with our children at home. And the harassment, I didn't realize that my children were having such a hard time socially, maybe with their teachers. Well, Black students in Illinois are far more likely to be ticketed by police for school behavior than white students. Now, this is not a news story, but it is very, very difficult to track because it's not codified often. But we have two brilliant reporters, Jody Cohen from ProPublica. Of course, she has been on this show before. I'm so glad that she is back. And we've got Jennifer Smith Richards from the Chicago Tribune to talk about their research and how, and just what is going on with our children in these schools and how does this impact their parents who are already fighting inflation. They've got yet more. They've got yet more fees to pay, and not just fees. I mean, these are legal bills. Talk to me, Jody. What were your findings?
Thank you for having me back this morning. Well, Jennifer and I looked into when police issue tickets to students at school. So this is oftentimes what happens when a school official will realize that a student did something that breaks the school code or that would violate a local ordinance. They get that information and they turn it over to the police, sometimes the police officer who's stationed at the school. And while in Illinois, school officials can't issue fines as discipline for students, they can't, give a student a monetary fine for doing something wrong. What's happening is they're giving the information to the police, who then issue them a ticket for violating a local ordinance, and those typically come with very costly fines. We're talking about things like, vaping, having vape devices, or small amounts of cannabis, or disorderly conduct, insubordination, things. We're not talking about fights that involve weapons or someone getting seriously injured. These are more minor misbehavior.
Well, I mean, let's Jennifer Smith Richards from the Chicago Tribune. Let's look at some of these things that our young people are being charged with. Because you looked at two high schools. You looked at Bloom Trail High School in the south suburbs, and you looked at DeKalb High School west of Chicago. But you looked all over the place. Number one, it was hard to track the information. Even though, what made you, let me just back up, what made you want to investigate this particular issue, Jennifer?
Well, Jody and I have previously reported about other types of punitive discipline in schools, and we had seen that the police were very often getting involved in just your kind of everyday disciplinary issues, the type of things that when we were in high school would have resulted in a trip to the principal's office or detention or maybe suspension. So we started looking at this and realized that ticketing was a part of the disciplinary process now in many, many Illinois schools. So we looked all over the state. We ended up with information about ticketing from about 141 school districts across Illinois, and confirming that they were issuing tickets to children for, as Jody explained, minor misbehavior. So we were just really curious how police were interacting with kids and what the impact was. And as Jody said, the very clear impact was that families were ending up with fines and hundreds of dollars worth of fines for minor misbehavior at school, and that this was disproportionately impacting students of color.
So you've had the head of the Illinois Department of Education who's come out, and she is looking at your work, and she said what? Jennifer.
So she said, stop it. This is the most plain language. she came out and told, sent a letter to superintendents and principals across the state that basically cut this out. You know, if you are participating, if you are using police as a way to discipline your students, that's not appropriate, and you should stop doing this right now. She called it actually, you know, an abdication of responsibility, you know, for student discipline. So really strong words from the governor and from the state superintendent telling schools that this is really not appropriate to be involving police in minor discipline. And I just want to point out, like, we're not talking about things that are major incidents on campus, because police do, you know, they can and do arrest students for you know, big things. We're talking about, what he said, insubordination and being truant, which is a really common problem across the state.
Well, you know, I'd like to, because that's what I'd like to get into. You know, I mean, what has happened with the culture, Jody and Jennifer? Let me start with you, Jody, because Jennifer made the point. There were things that routinely you were sent to the principal's office. That made you the bad boy, the bad girl back in the day. Now it has changed. At one high school, you said they had 10 security guards and a police officer. Now, mind you, in my grammar school, I only saw officer friendly. Now, this was 40 years ago, okay? More than 40 years ago. So there it is. But something in the culture has shifted as we're watching crime rates go down. But we're watching these punitive measures against these children amp up. And you brought up this 14-year-old student named Isaiah, who said, I feel like I'm being watched in the school. Feel like I'm being watched. And, you know, there's this Denver study that shows that many of the white teachers are afraid of these black students. You know, they teach down to them. They don't think that they can achieve as much. Jody, what's happened in the culture that would allow this?
Well, I think a couple things came together. So police officers became more common in schools after Columbine, right? There was lots of money, federal money for policing in schools, and there are police in the schools now. And at the same time, schools say that they, you know, they're looking for other ways to discipline students, and there's somebody there in the school, and this is, you know, kind of become part of the norm of the culture is to, at least in Illinois, to issue tickets to students. And, you know, sometimes they say suspensions don't work or detentions don't work, but, you know, give them a financial penalty and maybe the family will take it, you know, take things more seriously. In that letter that Jennifer talked about from the state superintendent, she said, you know, these fines, this way of ticketing or outsourcing discipline to police is not only financially harmful, but and really hurts families, but it doesn't help change the behavior. That there's, you know, you're not helping anyone in a situation, and you're not going to have a better school culture because of it. Which is why she said, you know, stop this outsourcing to police now. I think, you know, what you asked, what led to, you know, what's going on. I mean, I think, you know, we're still in the middle of this pandemic, and 2 years in, people have had a lot of trauma. Some of that coming, you know, children are bringing some of that trauma to school with them, and it's been a really, really hard 2 years. And, you know, people are trying to find all different ways to cope with it, and, you know, maybe to manage it. And, you know, we've seen truancy, you know, Jennifer mentioned truancy. We saw some schools where they decided to continue ticketing students, you know, financially for missing school, even though in Illinois that's illegal. You can't, you know, there's a law that says the schools can't tell other authorities like police about a student not coming to school in order to get a fine. That's not legal in Illinois, but that's one response that schools are still using.
Jennifer, I mean, this plays into the discussion that we've been having for a long time about the school to prison pipeline. This just seems emblematic of that. I think we can all think back to Columbine. These boys, Dylan Klebold, and I forget the other teenager's name, who walked in and killed all these people and then themselves. They were they were social outcasts. And Columbine, of course, is an affluent community. It's a white community. And they were walking around, in goth clothing. And mind you, that should not that should not send up a flag about who you are and whether you're going to kill people. But it seems that we overlook disturbing behaviors with white kids. And we look for, and we criminalize black children. I mean, you see Isaiah, and I'm sure you have other cases where these kids feel watched, and I'm wondering how this also impacts how they, their performance in the classroom. How does this, impact? I mean, what are the teachers saying? Because I'm trying to figure out how you get ticketed in school, Jennifer. I don't. That's not working for me right now. I don't understand how you walking down the hall, you do something silly, and you get ticketed. What is the principal there for? If the principal doesn't discipline you.
Yeah, I mean, one of the interesting things here is that the principal is also disciplining. So in the case of Isaiah, you mentioned, this is a young man who really felt like all eyes were on him all the time, that they were just waiting for him to slip up at school. And, he was in the bathroom one day and a friend handed him a vape device, which he handed right back. He said he didn't use it, he didn't keep it, he handed it right back. And a school administrator, thought he saw that happen and took Isaiah into the office and searched him, didn't find a vape device, but nonetheless told a police officer who works on campus about that he thought he saw the vape. And so Isaiah ended up with a ticket. So what you're seeing here is almost like a double punishment, right? You're seeing kids who are ending up at the principal's office, getting suspended, and getting a ticket. And in terms of just how it happens, like we saw across the state, varied ways that police got tickets to students. Sometimes they literally wrote right at school and handed them to the student. In some cases, they delivered tickets at home, mailed the tickets. So, kids were walking away with two types of punishment, sometimes, the physical ticket and also a suspension. And certainly, to your point, a lot of kids really felt like they were being targeted, that particularly black students said that, if a white student was doing the same type of behavior as them, they would sometimes not be punished as harshly. And we know through data and through, years of research that is true, that black students and white students can have the same behavior, and black students will be punished more harshly oftentimes.
Well, I just want to know, because we only have a couple of minutes left here. Because this is a wonderful series, and everyone, I've posted it on my Facebook, and I will repost it. I'll reshare it today. I've put it back up for today. Illinois state law bans schools from fining students, but local police have been involved, and so they're the ones who are doing this job. Is there anything that can be done to stop that? I mean, what is now the next step? We've had the Illinois state superintendent, get involved and decry these practices. What is next? First you, Jody, and then you, Jennifer. 1 minute, Jody.
Okay, 1 minute. Let's go. So we've had some school officials say that they are revisiting their school codes and their codes of conduct and explicitly saying when police cannot get involved in certain things, especially things that would have discretion, like insubordination or disorderly conduct, that these are not matters for police to get involved in. They could revise their agreements with police, their MOUs, to say when police cannot get involved. And of course, there's always, you can always legislate this issue too. We already have some laws that try to get at some of these
issues and stop this from happening. So we have had a few state lawmakers, including the House Speaker, say that this is something that they need to revisit when they get back into session in the fall.
Jennifer, your closing thoughts.
I think this is something to keep an eye on. As Judy said, I think legislators have indicated that they want to take this up, that it's an important issue to try to make sure that all students are treated fairly and disciplined appropriately at school.
You know what? Ladies, I hope that you'll come back to the show and next time come back for a longer period of time, because I think the Color of Change had a study more than 10 years ago that showed that black children and brown children, black children in particular, 6 times more likely to be suspended or expelled from school. And it happens to the youngest children. And now, even though the Illinois law bans these schools from fining students, we've got local police involved. We're policing our children. And we're not winning when we do this. I want to thank you, brave journalists, for your work. I know this was not easy work. I mean, you had to dig, and really get this information, and we are forever in your debt. Jody Cohen, investigative reporter from ProPublica, and investigative reporter from the Chicago Tribune, Jennifer Smith Richards. Will you come back to the show sometimes when we can kind of really extend this conversation, because this is something, it's not new, but now you've made it news because of your intrepid reporting, and I'm so glad about that. Jody Cohen, Jennifer Smith Richards, blessings to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'd love to come back.
Okay. Alessandra, I'm calling you. We're going to make that happen. And she is the best, by the way. Everybody, send much love to my engineer, Cosme Lozano. He is a college graduate, everybody. What a Mother's Day present he gave his mom yesterday, everybody. University of St. Francis, he's going to be doing great things in communications. Sending him much love, everybody. Come on. Give it up for Cosme Lozano. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show. What do you think about this story? What about the criminalization of our children? Back in just a minute. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was great.
Oh, look, I'm sorry I was rushing you, but I was have to get through headlines and everything else, and I'm running. But I've got to have you back on the show because I really think you're doing great work.
Yeah, anytime. Thank you. Appreciate it so much.
Oh no, I appreciate you really more than I can say, and because I know it was not easy to find this information, and when I, was able to dig down into how you reported the story, I said even then this is not telling half of it. They had to dig, because these awful statistics. Oh yeah, I mean because they're not. It's just so hard to find them because they're so awful. They're so awful. You can never find them ever. And so I want to thank you for your work because I think it opens a door for changing things. I mean, there's a Bailey study out of Denver, just very quickly. The former school board member, she studied the district's court-ordered school integration plan, and she found some things that were very, very disturbing. That teachers who are not Black don't expect Black students to succeed, and so they teach down to them, which is why many Black kids do so well at HBCUs. I mean, I think about my father and his horrific experience at the University of Illinois at Champaign-Urbana. Horrific. And he flourished at North Carolina A&T State University. Then he came back here to the University of Chicago and flourished there. But, he was, but even he got a D in preaching at the University of Chicago, if you can imagine that. Because his process was one that what he would do is he would write up his sermons, because he was in seminary there. He had a full scholarship there. And then he would outline it. And then he would outline it again, because anyone who knows anything about, Reverend Jesse Jackson, he's an extemporaneous speaker, but he's a very studied speaker. So he does the research, he writes everything up, and then he outlines it again. So when he gets up on, and even then when he get to the pulpit, You would just see an outline. You wouldn't see a speech. You wouldn't see a sermon written out. But he could present to his professors all the research. But that was not enough. Well, he did okay. So it's all right. It didn't stop him for sure. So it's all right. No, but you know what? You're right. It's not all right. It's not all right. It's not. It's not. And but they have teachers who this study showed that teachers are outright afraid of Black students. It's just on and on, and that's why I'm thankful. I'm so grateful to you for the work that you've done, because it takes your sensibility and your sensitivity to get these kinds of stories out there. So thank you for that.
I appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
Thank you, because I mean, what my brother Jonathan says. We don't have troubled children. We don't have, what is it? Our children aren't troubled. They are troubled, and we need to work with them. And then sometimes it's just being silly, as a 14-year-old will be. I mean, Dr. Carl Bell said, look, your brain doesn't really connect on both sides till you're 25. Children are silly.
30 seconds.
You know that. So blessings
True.
to you. But
True.
I mean, come on. Think about your thinking at 20. At 20, dumb. Just, oh my
Of
God.
course. True. All right. Have a great day.
Blessings to you. Thank you so much.
15 seconds.
Okay, wonderful. And we
I have attorneys Hoffler and attorney Connolly up, but attorney Daryl Jones isn't answering his phone and it's going straight to voicemail.
Okay, well, just keep trying. Perfect.
Okay. And then I'll get up Chappelle momentarily right now. This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Hey, many thanks to Jody Cohen of ProPublica and Jennifer Smith Richards from Chicago Tribune. I am Santita Jackson, coming to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station. We were Air America, but now we're the Heartland Signal, everybody. The capital of talk. That's what Chicago is, everybody. That is why they brought Oprah here and Phil Donahue and on and on and on. This is what we do in Chicago. AM 950 radio is my home in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Hey, Chad, sending you much love up there. And Mark Pinsky and Matt Cummings. And, all my people, Steve and Vidalia, all the folks. I love you, love you, love you. And sending you much love here at WCPT 820. And of course, tune in to Joan Esposito at 2 o'clock. And of course, Ms. Vasquez at 5 o'clock. They give you some of the best radio around. And of course, Commissioner Brandon Johnson at 9 o'clock on Saturdays. It's just a tremendous lineup of programming that we have for you that is progressive here at WCPT and at AM 950 Radio. We need your support, everybody. We're going to be talking about these Black students in Illinois who are far more likely to be ticketed by police for their behavior than white students. And Illinois law bans schools from fining these students, but somehow or another, local police have gotten involved, and they're doing it for them, issuing thousands of tickets a year for truancy, for vaping, for fights and other misconduct. I mean, these are truly nonviolent offenses, giving them a record and then giving their parents additional financial burdens. What do you think about that, everybody? Call me, text me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. I want to know what your thoughts are about this. It's horrific. We're criminalizing our children. Of course, we've got attorney C.K. Hoffler, Legal Eagle, and of course, attorney Aaron Connolly, Legal Eagle. Of course, attorney C.K. Hoffler is the chair of Rainbow Push. She's the immediate past president of the National Bar Association, and attorney Aaron Connolly, one of the top political consultants and organizers in the country. And we've got attorney Daryl Jones, who is the chair of the Transformative Justice Coalition, talking about the criminalization of our children. It was very, very difficult for Jody Cohen of ProPublica and and Jennifer Smith Richards from the Chicago Tribune to try and find this information. These awful statistics are not easily accessible. They are codified, but they're tucked way, 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 way back there somewhere. And see, and this is in the context of years old studies that show that Black children are 3.5 times more likely to be suspended. There was a color of change study from a decade ago that showed that Black children were 6 to 10 times more likely to be suspended or expelled from school. We've seen this, we've seen the stories. And of course, you, Attorney Hoffler, have been involved with what was it, a kindergartner or a first grader who was handcuffed and put in the back of a police car in Florida? But I think we have, I think just before kindergarten, before we get to you, I think we have Chaparral up with us. Chaparral, are you there?
I am, Santita, and good morning. Thank you so much. At Celebrations by Us, we are your one-stop party connection, and we are definitely gearing up for our prom, graduation, and wedding season. So right now, we're taking your orders for your suite tables, as well as also your custom backdrops, and also your hors d'oeuvre table. So don't hesitate to give us a call at 708-526-4546. 708-526-4546. We're also doing all of your food as well. We're doing your hors d'oeuvres as well as your complete meals. So don't hesitate to call us at 708-526-4546. We appreciate your support. Thank you so much, Santita.
Oh, you are more than welcome. You're more than welcome. Attorney C.K. Hoffler, I know this is something that that you've actually seen up close. You said this child was in kindergarten. I remember this was something, this was a case that you were involved in. What is going on?
Well, Santita, what's going on is a tragedy beyond really words. It's hard to express what's happening to our children in this country. But I was involved almost 2 decades ago in a case with a young 5-year-old child who was having a meltdown. And I have 2 boys, and so what I know about children, young adults, and even adults, is that they are prone to having meltdowns, especially when they're 5. They don't get their way. And this child was having a little meltdown in school. The teachers wanted her to do something, and she just said no, and she wanted to talk to her mom. And it escalated to the point where they called the truancy officers and law enforcement, and she was handcuffed initially. And you could see these adults surrounding the child who was fighting with her. She was under 40 pounds, fighting with her little fist, trying to push them off because they were crowding her and intimidating her. And then they put her in the back of a police car and shackled her feet. And there she stood in handcuffs and shackles and laid in the back of the car yelling and crying for her mom for 3.5 hours. Her mother came to the scene. They would not allow her mother to take custody of her because they were trying to, in Florida, it's called Baker Act, which is trying to get her institutionalized, put her in a mental facility. That failed, and she was ultimately released in the custody of her mother. But at its core, we have an excessive use of force against children, much like what we're seeing today. Children and young adults, as opposed to finding other solutions. I mean, educational institutions are about the business of teaching our children, protecting our children. And instead, what we're seeing is the criminalization of children, getting law enforcement involved. When I was involved in that case, it brought to light other cases throughout the country where young children in particular were being victimized, criminalized, because of having something that's pretty common with young kids. But in Florida, as you know, I would say all things crazy happen in Florida. I hate to say that, but that was one of those cases. But unfortunately, it's not uncommon. So we're seeing now in Illinois similar trends, and it's very disturbing, legally and socially and morally. Very disturbing.
And Aaron, it's not new. That's what's so awful. I mean, this data, this case. Pardon my mistake, CK. This was almost 20 years ago. I remember we talked about it on Keep Hope Alive. But we have the Color of Change study that came out more than 10 years ago that showed that Black kids are 6 to 10 times more likely to be suspended or expelled from school. You've got this other research, another study that showed that Black pupils aged 9 to 10 are 3.5 times more likely to be given detention or suspended. And then you have another study. There's a former school board member from Denver, Colorado, Sharon Bailey, who because of this district's school integration program, she decided to study the system, and she found that by and large, these were some of her most notable findings. Teachers who are not Black don't expect Black students to do well in the classroom, which affects perception and the rigor and vigor with which teachers approach these students. There are many teachers who are outright afraid of Black students. And then we find one school had 10 security personnel in Illinois. I mean, like, I can't. The first time I saw a metal detector in a high school, we had gone to a vocal competition, and it was very unsettling to me. I could not wait to get home to tell my parents about it because I was like, and then I said, I can't even imagine being in that school every day. That's not a school, that's a prison. So talk to me. What about these findings, Erin Connolly?
Well, good morning, Santita. Good morning to your panel, and thank you for having such amazing reporters on your show to discuss this very important issue, and one that, as you mentioned, has been going on for many years, and we still see the practice and new inventive ways to marginalize and punish Black and brown students in ways where white students are given a pass. Not only in the discipline department, but it would be unheard of for students to receive additional tickets on top of punishments already added by the school. So, and we see the long-term impact. These are re-traumatizations of full communities. As you said, the impact that metal detector had on you for one day, imagine that over and over, living in fear, having 10 officers being able to have complete control over your environment. That's stressful in and of itself. And so then you add on additional discipline. You add on the insecurity of having to be able to pay for tickets that you probably can't afford. Mm-hmm. And then that goes on your record. You have 2 permanent records now, right? And then they can point to you and say that you're a bad kid. And that, in and of itself, separates you from your community and does an additional trauma on a young student who's vulnerable. And so what we're saying is we're allowing these schools in the state to essentially sponsor this trauma of these children. And I'm so glad that you've uncovered this with these amazing reporters. And I think, what we hear from the lawmakers is promising, but clearly this is an issue that has an opportunity to be corrupted very easily. I hope we see that.
Daryl Jones, how does this mean? Because you have to explain this on a college application. This could keep you out of the college of your choice. You think of how parents are struggling right now. I mean, inflation is through the roof. People are literally having to make life and death decisions. We already, before the pandemic, could not afford to go to the emergency room. About half of Americans, 47%, couldn't pull together $400 for an emergency room visit. That's worse now. And now you've got parents and their children as young as kindergarten, who are being ticketed in school. These are things that the reporters made the point that you used to be taken to the principal's office. That doesn't happen anymore. So where do we go? Because this is against Illinois law, Daryl Jones. The Illinois law bans schools from fining students, but somehow or another, local police got involved. And this is happening all over the country. And yet, the boys from Columbine were allowed to walk through the school, look menacing, behave in a menacing, antisocial way for more than a year. And no one said anything. Talk to me, Daryl.
Well, good morning, Cynthia. You almost had me speechless with that because it's so on point. And I think the other thing that I find, and certainly kudos to Julie Cohen with this ProPublica, as well as Jennifer Smith Richardson on the Chicago Times and bringing this forward. But one of the things that I found equally troubling is that a lot of times after these students are ticketed, from what I understand and from what I've seen, they have fairly quick hearings. So they get in very quickly with regards to trying to stand up to defend themselves. And oftentimes they're not represented by anybody, so they're by themselves before a hearing board trying to explain their side. And that's troubling, particularly when you take into consideration the fact that these are things that could stay with them, that they will have to explain down the road. So they have significant impacts down the road. It also touches on something that Aaron Connolly said, because it's these early interactions with law enforcement that, CJ talked about the metal detectors going into the school, but I can only imagine what it's like to be the student that becomes accustomed to the metal detector, the student that becomes accustomed to being questioned by the teachers and knowing that they could call law enforcement at any moment and have you ticketed. And then put you in a situation where if there is a fine, I recall one situation where the student was working and taking part of his check or her check from the fast food to pay the fine. So, and if the fine is not paid, then it becomes part of their, potentially part of their, referred to collections, and can become part of their credit history to have that impact. So on a lot of levels, this is extremely, extremely troubling. One of the things that I hope happens from the research that Ms. Cohen and Ms. Smith-Richards has done is that I would like to see more parents, more hearings heard across the area to find out how prevalent this is. And unless you can get a hold of the prevalence of it, you can't start to work toward the resolution of it. You don't tackle the tiger from the head. You've got to come up with a plan for how to deal with this. And that's what I think needs to go in place today. Now, I'm completely against school resource officers because I think that has such a psychological impact, particularly on Black kids, and the disparate treatment that occurs in the school. If an officer is needed, they should be called in, obviously, but there has to be really, really bad situations for that to occur. But given all of the historical context of Black people and policing and all of that comes into play psychologically for this history, for the future of that child, that's extremely concerning. And just the marks that are being made to make it more difficult for that child to succeed, not only educationally, but also in the work field and financially because of the credit history thing that could potentially occur. All of that is very troubling, and I think that the first step has got to be to get a definition on how prevalent it actually is.
Let me go to Tim from DeKalb. Tim, what's on your mind?
Good morning. Thank you for taking my call. Congratulations to your coworker that graduated college. That's phenomenal.
Thank you.
Congratulations. I call from DeKalb all the time. My wife works at DeKalb High School, and I just would like everybody who's discussing what you're discussing to come out to DeKalb High School, sit in a classroom or sit in the classroom for a while and see what's happening, because my wife has a master's degree in cross-cultural education, and unfortunately, there's been several times when she's had to call the police on students. And she came home a couple of years back, probably 3 or 4 years ago, just distraught because she just felt like everything she ever learned, she was a loser. That she couldn't impart what she thought. She's a big-time student advocate, but the schools are really not enforcing disruption. When children disrupt the classroom, that one individual is allowed to continue to disrupt the entire school for either a day or for their entire time at that high school or school. And I think it's just like people to realize that other children who are not disrupting school actually have the same civil rights as the kids who are disrupting the school, and they need to be thought of as well. So I would like to welcome everybody out to DeKalb High School. I myself spoke in front of the school board, which is on YouTube, which is recorded forever, to voice my concerns for the fact that they allow children to walk into that school with 1 or 2 backpacks without searching the backpacks, without metal detectors. And the staff at the school are distraught. The staff are very, very afraid of that. Now, I didn't mean that in any way, shape, or form for Black kids, because Black kids don't come into schools and shoot them up. I was thinking of very much like the Columbine situation, because when you look at those shooters who do what's mass shootings or group shootings, they almost invariably are white students. So when I was speaking before the school board, it had nothing to do with any kids of color. I was terrified of the typical scenario going down at that high school, because DeKalb went from a high school that was not problematic to an incredibly problematic high school.
But you know what, Tim? Tim, I think that this is reflecting something else that's going on in the culture. But what is also disturbing is that Black children are targeted. Because we went past Dylan Klebold and his partner at Columbine. We go past the shooter in Pearl, Mississippi, in Paducah, Kentucky, because they're white kids. And somehow or another, we understand their problems. And then they come in and shoot everybody. But then you have a Black child, Isaiah, 14. He wasn't a young man. He was a 14-year-old boy who felt that he was being looked at, tracked very, very closely. And he was. And there is something really off. And Tim, I always thank you for calling. But let me let the panelists. We only have about 4 minutes left here. CK, why don't you speak to Tim, because Tim means well, and you've got a lot of parents who are seeing a lot of kids who have a lot going on. But what we're ticketing kids and putting their parents in further financial peril, is that the answer?
The answer is not to have inconsistent application of the rules. That's where the problem lies. Whatever the rules are as it relates to children in schools, they should be applied across the board to Black children and white children. Because I would dare say that if they are applied across the board, we wouldn't have the criminalization of children. And so I think that the solution is not to criminalize. I am sensitive and do understand the plight of teachers who do feel very uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. But as Tim points out, their level of discomfort over kids coming and shooting up should not be targeted at the Black kids, because there's a very, 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 very high unlikelihood that they will do that. That doesn't mean that kids won't be disruptive. Kids will be disruptive, but the solution cannot be to target Black kids, because what that does is it puts them in a system already, in a criminal justice system that will be with them like an albatross around their neck, and they can't shake it, because it impacts everything from home life to their ability to get into college to just how they perceive themselves. When you have to go through metal detectors every single day, you feel like you're going into a war zone. You feel like you're not valued. You feel like you don't have any worth. And that compounds what could be how the kids are coming to school. After all, right now we're in a pandemic. Everybody's experiencing some level of PTSD. So everything is worse. So the criminalization and the escalation of the criminalization of children, of Black and brown children, is not the solution. But the consistent application of one set of rules for all children in schools is the solution, because then you have standards. You have the parents know, the children know, the school system knows, and legally you have expectations of what is appropriate and what's not appropriate. It's when you have random application of the rules to a segment of children, that's not right, that's not correct, and that is reeks of racial animus, because that's exactly how it happens in Black and brown communities.
Mm-hmm. And you know what it is.
I think you have to look at all sides of this and have one set of rules.
Absolutely. What the problem is, we don't have one set of rules. Jody Cohen and Jody Cohen's research and Ms. Smith-Richards' research showed that Black children, Black children, are more likely to be ticketed by police for the same behavior. It's the same behavior as white students. And I think criminalizing our children, whatever their colors, is a bad thing. Aaron, I've got literally 1 minute for you.
Yeah, I'm looking at this in the broader context, as you mentioned, CK, that we're coming out of a pandemic. Our students are taxed emotionally. They're re-socializing right now. There is not enough mental health care support in our school system in general. At these schools where we are adding trauma to students on purpose, I think we really have to take a step back and think about the fragile state of our young people in this country, and we hear it over and over, and we need to do more to support them, whether that's in making sure kids aren't getting bullied. There's been horrible stories in Chicago and across the country in the last couple of months of students not having support and taking their own lives. So we need to be really careful about how we're going to handle this with our young people, and they deserve better than they're getting.
I've got under a minute for you, Attorney Daryl Jones. We're gonna revisit this story and others like it.
We do need to revisit. We've got to be certain that we provide proper support for the students, but this is a situation where it also has an impact on the parents as well. So, we respect the teachers. We understand the job and the difficult job they have to do, but we've got to be certain that our Black students, our brown students are well respected in the school when we send them to get an education.
Well, and my brother Jonathan puts it this way: we don't have problem children. We have children with problems, and we have to be willing to do the work to help our children. And we also have to be loving enough, caring enough to chastise them when they are wrong. Too many of us as parents, and I don't have children, but we don't want our children corrected. Oh, no. But you also have to make sure that the person who's doing the correcting is doing it in a loving way. So there's a lot of work that we've got to do here. There's a lot of work that we have to do here, but you should not have to go to school with guns. You should not have to go through a metal detector and all of that. You shouldn't have to do that. It resets the culture, and it reinforces the school to prison pipeline. Psychologically, it does a reset with our kids, and it puts them in jail. That's not right. That's not right. And we're all poorer for it. Black, white, yellow, red, brown. Look, come to the Rainbow Push Convention, June 18th through the 22nd. We're going to be talking about issues like this and more. And Coach Lozano, I know you're tired of me saying it, but congratulations to you, my engineer, University of St. Francis. Oh, sending you much love, young man. So proud of you. He's such a nice young man, such a good young man, so bright. And the future for you is limitless. God bless your parents. I know you gave your mama the best present of all. The fact that she sees that you're going to be all right. God bless you, everybody. God bless you, Postmate. Congratulations, college graduate. I love you, everybody. See you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. CK, are you still there? You know what? I want to try a couple of things. I want to get Chris Smalls back on. They've been firing the several managers at that plant, at that fulfillment center.
Right, because they want to participate in union activities.
Right.
Okay. You want me to reach out to him?
Yeah, but I want you to be on. Yep, I want you to be with him, if that's possible. Okay. But also, I came across a study, and this is for all of you. I saw it in the Times of Israel, that young Jewish American women outperform all others academically, and they think that they believe that their religious grounding is at the center of this. Isn't that interesting? So I definitely want to talk about that. Because all I'm trying to do is look at how we can help our children to succeed. That's all I want. That's all I want. That's all I want. That's all I want. I gotta have Reverend. So please look into that for me, CK, because I want us to keep in touch. I want us to keep up with that story.
I'll look into it.
Okay. So did I leave anything off the table? Is there anything that anyone else wants to say?
No, it was great.
Okay.
That's it. Okay.
All right. Sending y'all much love. Coach May, thank you, honey, for a wonderful show. I guess I'll be with you tomorrow.
Thank you for all those kind words on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're more than welcome, sweetheart. You are more than welcome. You're more than welcome. Let me know. Oh, you're going to be with me tomorrow.
Yeah, no, I'll be back in tomorrow.
Okay. All right. That's right. Well, don't party on, dude. You gotta work in the morning. How about that?
Yeah, no, I gotta make the most of it in the afternoon.
Okay.
All right. Well,
Bless
you
your
have a
heart.
good rest of your day, and I will talk to you tomorrow morning.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm very, very, very happy for you and very proud of you.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Always a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, everybody. So, I'm going to let you go. Hey, hey, hey. Thank you, George. Sending you much love and sending all of you much love today. And I am going to go so I can get on with the rest of my day. But we will be talking with Chris Smalls, who really kicked off this union movement at Amazon. That was like fantastic. But they, of course, are firing those managers who supported that. But, that was going to happen. And even with that, keep on organizing. That's what needs to happen. That's what needs to happen. So I love you, everybody. Oh, thank you, Jewel. Everyone, please consider coming to the Rainbow Push Convention, June 18th through the 22nd here in Chicago. Please go to rainbowpush.org and get registered for the convention. It is not a lot of money. It's going to be great. We're going to have a youth component. You really need to be there. Plus, I'd love to see my Morning Stars if you're in town. If you're going to be near town, I want to see you. I love you now. No. You're right. Some of these children are totally out of control. And they do need, I'm not saying the children need to discipline children. Now, my parents believed in disciplining children. And I believe in that too. That having been said, criminalizing children, there's a line that is being crossed here. And look, you have a lot of Black kids, which was the point, who are not doing anything. The presumption is that Black children are criminals. Now, that is dangerous. That is dangerous. The presumption that our children are criminals. That's the problem. That's the problem for me. And it's so funny. I hadn't thought about this in 1,000 years. When I was interviewed to go to Harvard, Glenn Wharton, Jeff Schwenk, several of us went the same day because we were scheduled the same day. We were like, our interviews were staggered, and we all kind of waited for each other because we all lived in the same general area. And Glenn Wharton, polo shirt, loafers, khakis, okay? He ended up going to Princeton. And, we have color issues, light-skinned, curly hair, the whole bit, okay? The first thing that he was asked in his interview was how he dealt with gangs. Anyone who saw Glenn knew he didn't know anything about gangs. Nothing, okay? I was like, you were asked what? I was like, well, let me tell you what happened with me. They wanted to know about my father, and they told me they didn't like his politics, and yeah. I agree with all of that, everybody, all of that. And so, that's what I mean. All of these presumptions, and then the pre-interviewer told me he felt that I was ethnocentric. Do you know what that means? Number one, why would you use a word that you think that I might not know the meaning of? What is that? Not to mention the fact that, I know what ethnocentric means. No, I'm not ethnocentric, but I have race pride. What's the problem with that? Oh, so I'm supposed to want to be a white person. Come on, y'all. That's crazy. You're supposed to be the best that you are. How about that? Crazy. So yeah. They should, and Glenn thought it was hilarious, and I did too. We didn't think it was hilarious. It was like, wow, okay. They want us to know, well, how do you deal with gangs? And Glenn, if you saw him, you knew he knew nothing about gangs. Nothing. That was not his, please. But if he did, should that be a mark against him? No. But no, he didn't. But there were a lot of presumptions that they made, broadly speaking. And his khakis and loafers and polo shirt were not affectations. That's who he was. Okay? He ended up going to Princeton anyway, but whatever. So that having been said, I just, I think that we need to be mindful. We need to be mindful. We need to be mindful of what we're dealing with here. Let us be mindful. So I love you all. I will see you tomorrow. Love you.